Hi, and welcome to the Cornell University Insect Collection. My name is Jason Dombrowski, and I'm the collection manager for this collection. Overall, the collection has around 7 million specimens of insects from around the world, with special emphasis on New York State, where we've got material that goes back to the 1870s. Overall, the collection is used by a lot of different researchers, from people doing systematic research, describing new species, looking at existing species groups, to people doing conservation, so looking for rare and endangered species, or indeed species that have gone extinct, to people looking for potential new pests that could be intercepted at ports. So what I'll do is I'll do a quick walkthrough of some of the specimens that we've brought out here to show. So first thing here, we've got a tray of what looks like some ordinary grasshoppers. What's quite interesting about this is this particular species here, Melanopus spretus, the Rocky Mountain locust, is actually extinct. It used to be one of the most common grasshoppers in North America, was a huge agricultural pest, and then for some reason went extinct, possibly due to habitat loss. And we're fortunate in that we've got an old enough collection that we actually do have specimens of it here. And if you do want to see them to this day, you can come to the collection, but you could also go to a glacier in Montana where a large swarm of them got caught in a snowstorm and are preserved there for good. Moving on here, we've got some of the longest insects in the world. Some of the stick insects can actually get longer than these individuals here, so basically the length of a human forearm, and can be found throughout the world. Our local New York species is quite a bit smaller than this, only a few centimeters long, but they can be quite impressive in the tropics. Over here, I've got two drawers of some invasive species that have been recently introduced into New York State. The first one is the emerald ash borer. This one was discovered fairly recently, and it illustrates the value of this collection, because here's the emerald ash borer, just these two trays, whereas you can see it's quite similar to many of our native species, so it can be very difficult to identify these, and having a reference collection like this where I can compare material to identify things is really valuable for intercepting pests like this. Here's another one that you may have heard of, the Asian longhorn beetle, and the Asian longhorn beetle was also found in New York State by my predecessor Rick Hobeck, right in this lab, where someone from New York City sent in a beetle. He didn't recognize it. He compared it to the collection, and luckily we have good material from China that he was able to compare to and realize that we probably don't want this here, and we're successful at actually quarantining this in New York City. Then we can sort of go to some of the extremes in the insect world. We've got the tiniest insects around, the featherwing beetles, which can be less than a millimeter in length, and are so called because their hind wings are so small they look like tiny feathers, because the physics of air work different at that size, to the most massive insects we've got, the Goliath beetles, which can weigh as much as a mouse, and actually the larva, which lives inside rotting wood, can be even larger than these adult beetles. We also have good collections for medical entomology. So for example, we've got an excellent mosquito collection from various work done in the Panama Canal Zone when that was being built, as well as during World War II in places like Guadalcanal and the Solomon Islands. And we've got over half the world's species of deer flies and horse flies in our collection, with a heavy emphasis on Southeast Asia. In this drawer, we've got some local wasps. These are ichneumon wasps, which are parasitoids on a different type of wasp that bores inside trees. You can see they've got this long filament coming from the end of the abdomen. What this is an ovipositor, or egg-laying tube, which they use to basically drill into trees, find the larva, jab it, inject a virus into it, and lay an egg in it. And that egg hatches into a wasp grub that devours the other larva and kills it in the end. Then if we go over here, we've got some of our large bee collection holdings. We've got a great worldwide collection, as well as a good historical collection locally for bees. And through databasing of our bee collection, the Danforth Lab has been able to show that bees have been emerging earlier and earlier in the year as the climate has been warming in recent decades. Going through the butterflies and moths, much of the butterfly moth diversity is in tiny moths, including these tiny nepticulid moths, which have a wingspan of just a few millimeters and live their entire caterpillar life between the upper and lower layers of a leaf, to some of the largest ones, like these atlas moths. And atlas moths you can find in Southeast Asia and Australia, and have the largest wing area of any moth on Earth. Some of our more showy insects are things like the blue morpho butterfly, which has structural pigment in the wing, which actually reflects certain wavelengths of light, giving it the stunning iridescent blue color. These you can find in Central and South America, and they can actually be quite common, but very, very difficult to catch. And lastly, I'll point out, we have had many important collectors here over the years. These three drawers illustrate some of the Nabokov material from Vladimir Nabokov, who was a writer and also a scientist and did work on many different butterflies and moths, especially blue butterflies, as we've got in this central drawer here.